For 30 years, from 1795 to 1825, the monastery on the Rosenthal was a refuge for Trappist monks and nuns who had to flee from the turmoil of the French Revolution. A picturesque rural landscape awaited them in Darfield, and a lot of work. The nobleman Adolf Graf Droste zu Fischering made a piece of land available to the Trappists to build their own monastery. The area was about 12 1/3 acres. The monks first had to cut timber. Little by little, from wood and clay, they built poor dwellings, which became their new home. The entrance to the monastery was in the north. Next to it was the gatehouse. Men and women lived in strictly separated communities. The monks' quarters were in the western part of the residential complex, and the nuns in the eastern part. Many things changed over the years, and in 1800, the first nuns came to Darfield. When the monastery became too small, the monks moved to a monastery in Klein Burlo, a farming community north of Darfield. At one point, all the Trappists were driven out, but some of them returned. During the final years of 1819 to 1825, the monks and nuns lived once again together on the Rosenthal. They grew vegetables for their daily meal and kept cows. In their 30 years in Darfield, the Trappists turned the former forest into well-managed farmland. A wall separated the early monastery garden into the father's garden and another large garden. Enclosed by the residences of the monastery was another small courtyard for the nuns. In its 30 years, the monastery changed a lot. For example, the guest accommodations, laundry, and bakery were no longer found in the later years. The clergy also had to give up their school for boys. In the last phase of the monastery, they operated a rapeseed mill and a brewery. The Trappists not only brewed beer, they also made cheese. After the Darfield monastery was closed, the monks took the cheese recipe with them back to France. In the monastery in Antram, they made Port Salut cheese, which developed into a real bestseller and is still enjoyed today. The monastery had 2 churches and a cemetery. Due to the poor building construction and poor nutrition, many Trappists died before their 40th birthday. After the Trappists left Darfield in 1825, almost all of the buildings were demolished and the building materials were sold. Only the brewery was preserved and converted into a farmhouse for the new tenant. The memory of the monastery will not fade. In front of the former monastery, where you're standing, is now a memorial site.